Thank you, Madam President. I rise today, almost as we get to the early evening, during this week when Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, is being celebrated, to speak about the evil of anti-Semitism and the trauma and darkness it causes in all of America. This past November the 18th, I visited the site of the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in all of American history, the Tree of Life Synagogue in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A killer, full of rage, entered the synagogue during Shabbat morning services on October 27, 2018, and massacred 11 Pennsylvanians from 3 different Jewish congregations and injured 6 others, including 4 law enforcement officers who had responded in just minutes to the site. These Jewish Americans who died ranged in age from the ages of 54 to 97. Visiting the site 4 years later, this past November, was both moving and disturbing as we walked through a house of worship frozen in time from that awful day. The venomous hate that motivated the killer to take so many lives in a murderous rampage was unabated when he was arrested. He was making anti-Semitic statements even as he was apprehended and was being treated by first responders. The evil that attacked the Jewish worshipers in Philadelphia that day is the same evil, the very same evil that targets Americans based upon their race and gender or whom they love or how they worship. Too often, unlike any other nation in the world, this evil, this hate, is coupled with the easy availability of powerful weapons, which results in the mass shootings we've seen in so many communities in America. Just by way of a very small, limited set of examples. Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Pulse Nightclub in Orlando, Florida, a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, and Club Q in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, the following data, and these are numbers, but they tell part of the story. These numbers, this data should alarm any American. In 2022, the Anti-Defamation League, that we know as ADL, published an audit of anti-Semitic incidents and reported over 2,700 anti-Semitic incidents throughout the United States just in 2021. This was a 34% increase from 2020, and the highest number on record since ADL began tracking incidents in 1979. The rise of hate is further documented by congressional testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray. At a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in August of 2022, Director Wray stated that the top, and I'm quoting him, the top domestic terrorism threat we face continues to be from domestic violent extremists we categorize as racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, unquote. Director Wray later highlighted that the number of FBI investigations of suspected domestic violent extremists has more than doubled since the spring of 2020. This continued an upward trend when Director Wray testified in March of 2021 that investigations had also doubled since 2017 to more than 2,000 investigations, and that the number of investigations into white supremacists had tripled. Furthermore, on December the 12th of this year, the FBI released its annual hate crime report and reported over 7,200, let me say that number again, 7,200 hate crime incidents just in 2021, the third largest number in the past decade. And of course, December the 12th is not the end of the year. This number is even more shocking considering the massive undercounting and lack of data used to compile the report, which the FBI readily acknowledged. Due to the transition to a new reporting system, only about 2/3 of police departments across the nation, a significant drop from last year, reported data. Some states, for example, Florida and California, had almost no reporting, with only 2 jurisdictions in Florida and 15 in California sending data. Unfortunately, my home state of Pennsylvania was not far behind, with just 41 agencies reporting data to the FBI. Several major cities, including New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and Chicago, did not provide any statistics or simply reported zero. So while the underreporting is a concern and must be addressed, it is even more concerning that we would have likely seen record high reports of hate crimes across the nation had police departments participated at similar levels as in prior years. This data is further reinforced by the lived experience of too many Americans across this nation. By way of one example, in a Wall Street Journal article from December 15th, entitled, quote, "Anti-Semitism on the Rise at Colleges," unquote, a student at Rutgers University in Newark, New Jersey, spoke of needing to take indirect routes to class and hiding her Star of David necklace under her shirt to avoid harassment from other students. Citing the ADL's audit of anti-Semitic incidents, which I mentioned earlier, this article noted that vandalism, threats, and slurs on college campuses directed at Jewish students has more than tripled from 41 in 2014 to 155 in 2021. Every incident, of course, fueled by hate and extremism, does not result in death. Often, as evidenced by the example in the Wall Street Journal, hateful acts involve vandalism, destruction of property, bullying, or harassment, just to name a few. But these acts are the manifestation of evil as well. Incidents involving such hate, deadly or not, are contrary to American values, including the values inherent in the inscription on our currency, e pluribus unum, from many, one country, one nation that is strengthened by our diversity. That's the source of our strength, our diversity. People of different ethnicities, faiths, and points of view have come together over generations to build our democracy and to build the most powerful nation on earth. Any American who claims to support American values that our people hold dear while engaging in acts that constitute anti-Semitism is a hypocrite and a threat to all of us. It's a disgusting perversion of Christianity to make anti-Semitic or other hateful statements, or worse, to act violently against someone because they are Jewish, because they are transgender, or of a different race. From the parable of the Good Samaritan to the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus taught us how to love and respect all those that we meet on the road of life. Anti-Semitism, racism, or other hateful ideologies are contrary to our values, but also not just contrary to American values, but contrary to the values inherent in all religions. Each of us as citizens have a moral and civic obligation to speak out against anti-Semitism and racism. Those who are public officials or public figures have a heightened obligation, a duty to condemn categorically anti-Semitic acts, rhetoric, or other conduct, whether those acts, rhetoric, or conduct involve a president, a recording artist, or an athlete, or any other American. Of course, the United States Senate must speak with one voice against anti-Semitism and racism, both here at home and around the world. The Senate did act in 2021 to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act after the rise of hate crimes against Asian Americans during the pandemic. But an action like that cannot be the end of our action. That's why I was proud to support the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act when Senate Democrats tried to pass it in May after the racially motivated mass shooting in Buffalo. And the leader of that effort is our distinguished Majority Whip, Senator Durbin, who's with us here on the floor. And I appreciate his work on this, trying to pass that legislation. I was also pleased that on December the 12th, the Biden administration announced a new interagency task force charged with developing and coordinating a national strategy to counter anti-Semitism and other forms of bias and discrimination in the United States. This announcement was followed in response to a December 5th letter that I joined along with 124 bipartisan colleagues in the House and the Senate calling on President Biden to, quote, take a whole-of-government approach to address the, quote, scourge of anti-Semitism, unquote, including establishing an interagency task force. So I stand ready, as I know many here do in the Senate, to work with colleagues in the new Congress to ensure that we're taking steps necessary to combat this growing threat of hate and extremism. But even in these dark times, Madam President, it's critical to hold up and recognize those who are lighting the path forward to ending identity-based hate. The Tree of Life community is not merely lighting the path for Pittsburgh, but for the nation and indeed for the world by coming together to establish the Remember, Rebuild, Renew campaign. Remember, Rebuild, Renew. That's their campaign. In the city of Bridges, as Pittsburgh is known throughout the world, it is fitting that the Tree of Life community, that members of that congregation and synagogue, is trying to connect communities across the world as a leader in the fight against anti-Semitism and other forms of identity-based hate. Rooted in honoring and remembering those who tragically lost their lives on October 27, 2018, the community will repair and preserve the Tree of Life building as a historic synagogue while establishing a museum, memorial, and educational center to inspire and empower those in that community and around the world to stand up against anti-Semitism. Never before have we seen such a transformative, multidisciplinary approach under one roof and on such hallowed ground to bring people together in our fight against hate and anti-Semitism. As Rabbi Myers shared with me, Tree of Life is striving to transform the site of a tragedy into one of hope and inspiration for future generations to come. It is striving to fulfill the long-standing Jewish concept of tikkun olam, to repair the world. Through remembrance and renewal, Tree of Life is lighting the way forward for all of us to finally counter the root causes of hate and end, once and for all, anti-Semitism. We owe it to every survivor, family member, and the community members impacted to join them on this important journey. May the memories of the victims at Tree of Life be for a blessing. With that, Madam President, I will yield the floor.